Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this FlaskUp.com. It's more of a sit-down chat than an interview. And today I'm joined by Zoopercat, who is from the Ask Mr. Robot team, which is that very popular optimization website that you may have heard of once or twice. Firstly, I'd like to thank you for joining me today, Zoopercat.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me.
And hopefully over the next 30 minutes, pending how long the questions are, we're going to be talking all things Ask Mr. Robot. So to start off, let's jump back to last year in November and BlizzCon 2013. On the first day, I think it was, or possibly the second day, one of the two, they announced the removal of certain elements to the game, such as reforging and certain ways of gemming and enchanting your character. What was the first kind of initial reaction from the Ask Mr. Robot team to that, as they are a big part of your optimization toolkit?
Right, yeah. We're actually really excited on both a player level and for our company. The player level, it's complicated, and we know that, and you're always changing stuff, and you get one new piece of gear, and it means you have to change all of your gems and chants and reforges. As a player, nobody wants to have to do that. You just feel like you have to do that. So I think that was a huge improvement for the gameplay. And then second, this news came right after, maybe like a month or two after we redid our optimization algorithm.
Okay. And
when we redid it, the reason was we would get most people the best solution, but we couldn't guarantee it. So some people might, have gotten the second best solution or the 10th best solution. It was just a way we cut corners to keep the optimizer fast.
Okay.
Well, we rewrote it to guarantee that everybody got the absolute single best optimization. And that was really hard because most characters have, several trillion to several quintillion combinations of relevant gems and chants and reforges. This is excluding, agility on a priest, right? This is only things that are relevant to you, and some people still have several quintillion. Some people go higher than 999 quintillion, and then we just label it as a zillion. But to do that on a server, make it fast and make it guaranteed was no small feat. And then we had to do all sorts of tricks to make sure, like, the gear lists were also fast because they use the same ranking algorithm. So once they said they were taking that out, we were like, oh, well, finally we can focus on something else. We did a lot of work, but that work is still good for, at least a year or two. And so then with that, we actually wanted to work. We've always wanted to do something really cool with combat logs. And using that in a new way that nobody has really used before. And so once they announced that, I think it took us about 5 seconds to all be like, okay, so what can we do with cool combat logs? Because now we don't have to worry about spending time on this algorithm. So we were actually pretty excited.
Yeah, it's good to hear. Quite a few people are, I think there's more of a mixed reaction from a player perspective, but from your perspective, obviously it's really good news.
Right, yeah.
Do you think working on the optimization was becoming a bit of a time sink when you wanted to develop other parts of Ask Mr. Robot? So is that what's making you, yes, it's gone, finally?
Yeah, and it did. It was, time sink, and it's things like, we got the algorithm down, but then what happens when there's a patch or a major change, you have to update all of your things, right? So if you have a combat log parser, you have to add the new bosses or whatever. But with that algorithm, one of the reasons it started to get out of hand is over the course of Mists of Pandaria, when they started adding in things like the bonus rolls, or, the different like legendary meta gems or all these different things. Mm-hmm. We would have to put that into the algorithm. I take it back. Bonus rolls didn't really go into the algorithm. It was more things like legendary meta gems, or, they added in the flex. So now we had a whole other set of gear that had to go into the list rankings, and that slows things down. And so then we're always, trying to keep up. It's like, well, now we have flex gear, and you can upgrade gear, and you can upgrade it twice. Well, that just exploded the number of possibilities that we have to optimize.
Right, okay.
And so, so it's things like that it's like it's fine right now when there's no changes. But the minute that expansion comes out, we know we're going to have a ton of work to do if we had to maintain that algorithm. And so it started to become, where you can't have something else that's really cool, like a combat log parser, because you have to update both now in like a 24-hour period. It's not going to happen.
No.
So you're exactly right. It was basically the maintenance that would come with these changes. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything planned to replace reforging recommendations within the optimizer, or are you just going to leave it out and write it off as it's gone?
We're still going to keep the optimizer. It won't be nearly as important. It'll be a small side effect, and people probably look at it. My prediction is people look at it and be like, "Oh yeah, okay, these are the kinds of gems I should be looking for. Cool, done." And then they might not have to come back. So what we're going to do is redesign the site so that, right now you load your character and you come to your gear view with the optimizer. We're going to redesign that so you get other relevant information. We're going to pull the combat log information in there. So it'll kind of be like, hey, here's everything you want to know about your character. And now, what do you want to do? Do you want to, take a quick look at, what you should be looking for in optimizations? Do you want to find gear upgrades? Kind of walking people through the different activities they would want to do on our site.
So would you say it's going to move towards a kind of one-stop shop for all of the information that you need to know about your character?
Exactly. And then, we're not in the content business, so then on those pages we'll also be able to link to other high quality content. So it's like, hey, we can help you optimize. We have tools to find gear. We have all these things. And if you want to know about, playing your character, rotations or boss strategies, here's links to other people's content.
Right. Okay. So at the minute when you're on the character optimization, you've got the option to go to one of the Icy Veins class guides,
right,
which are really in depth. You can implement that.
Right. So it'll be
further way.
Exactly. So it'll be like that, but probably have even more stuff. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So I've heard you mention it a few times and quite a few people already know about it. Moving on to the combat logging that you're so proud of and happy for. It's currently in its alpha testing state, and how do you feel the testing's going so far?
It's actually going really, really awesome. I did a couple of screen shares with people who use it for the first time. So I was able to see kind of how they navigated through things, what they used, and it's just really fun. The first thing I found out, we have this little client that uploads everything, and when you upload it, we give you a really nice big success screen. It's like, yay, success! And if you want, here's a big blue link that says view log, and then we have a button that says close. Well, every single person clicked the close button, and everyone missed the big blue link. And so it was just funny that it was literally 100% of the people, and it's something you don't know about, and it's something nobody would have told us. People didn't know they missed it, or it's one of those feedback things that you feel nitpicky about, and a lot of people wouldn't even say it. So it's really fun to watch the screen shares and be like, oh, well, people like clicking buttons. I like clicking buttons, so why don't we just make the view log link a button instead? Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So, and that helps with the usability portion, right? So that was really fun. And then we got to find out that the navigation was great. People were able to navigate around the site really, really well. And so that was really nice. And we got to see what people are looking for. So that part was great. And then, we've got, people are giving us feedback on the forums, and people always have cool suggestions. Half of them we already have on the drawing board, and then the other half are just ways of thinking about things that hadn't crossed our mind. Like somebody said, hey, it's really cool that you show kills on one side of the fight picker and then wipes on the other side, but the problem is I have 20 wipes, and if I want to talk to somebody about wipe number 15, there's no way to do that. So he was like, can you number the wipe attempts? I'm like, oh, yeah, good idea. Done. Yeah. So it's been great, and users are pretty excited about it. So
it sounds like you've got a pretty decent base to work on. It's just more quality of life things that you're narrowing down at the minute.
Exactly, yeah. So we're spending, this week or next week kind of fixing the little things, any bugs, and then after that, we're working on kind of a bunch of the bigger features to go with that.
Are you able to elaborate on these bigger features, so to speak?
Sure. So one of the big things we're going to be doing is with people's gear. So we're going to have a lot of things relating to you and your gear. And one of those is we're going to attempt to automatically find you logs to compare you to.
Okay.
So right now, you might be able to browse. You might look at, say, hey, I'm a Affliction Warlock. I want to find another Affliction Warlock. So I'm just going to go to the number 1 ranked Affliction Warlock and then look at his stuff, right? So that's what everybody does right now, but that's not quite right. If you don't have your 4-piece set bonus and that guy does, he might be playing different than you.
Okay.
You might I don't know what the shadow or what the affliction's 4 piece is, but let's say it makes you
Makes you
your shadow
stronger.
bolt crit twice as much,
Yeah.
right? I have no idea what it is. And
It does
so then
something.
that guy, right? So that guy might be using shadow bolt way more than you should be using,
Yeah.
right? So we really want to try to get all those things, and then we have all the data. So instead of letting you go through or asking you to go through and find your own, we're going to try to dig through the data and automatically find somebody to compare yourself to.
Okay.
And so we're going to suggest logs for you to look at. And then we're going to try to do like a little summary, like, hey, here's the major differences we found. You're using Shadow Bolt only 1/3 as much as this guy, and, he's using this less and you're using this more. So you could try switching this around and see if it works for you.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So that's one of the big things we want to do. And then a lot of it kind of goes with just taking in all of that gear data and everything we know. So we'll be able to say something like, hey, you're doing 200,000 DPS, and you're like, cool. Is that good? Wait, I don't know if that's good. So we want to kind of put that in context, and we want to take everyone at that gear level, that's comparable to you,
Okay.
and say, well, you're in the 80th percentile. So actually that's pretty good. You're
Yeah.
right. And then, or we might say, oh, you're 40th percentile, and you're like, all right, well, based on, it's not a gear issue, right? So I know that I have to go read up on, how to play my warlock a little bit better.
Yeah.
So we kind of want to just give you that context so that you can learn how to improve. And maybe, like oftentimes if you're the best player in the raid, you're like, you have nobody to feel like you can compare yourself to. And with this system, we'll be able to say, well, actually you are in like the 99th percentile. So
Right. Okay.
just go get some new gear, and that's about all you can do, right?
Yeah.
Or we might say, well, you're the 80th percentile and everybody else in your raid is in the 50th percentile. So you actually do have quite a bit of space to improve. Yeah, so it's a lot of things like that we think will be a lot of fun.
Okay. Now, I know combat logging is mainly used for raiding, but do you think it would be integrated well with the changes they're making to proving grounds and players needing a certain level of proving grounds? I think it's the silver medal in order to be able to do specific heroic dungeons and whatnot come Warlords of Draenor.
Yeah, and I think that'll be something that'll be fun to look at adding in.
Okay.
Because I haven't really, we haven't really looked at any of those kinds of logs, but I can't imagine it's any different than a regular boss. So it would be kind of cool to use the proving grounds as another way to like rank, right? Because part of it when you're in a raid team, maybe your DPS is hindered or boosted because of something else your raid is doing, right? But in the proving grounds, it's just you. It really is a test of how good you are. So it would be really fun to add something like that in to kind of give you a little test. It's like, a lot of people use the target dummy right now to test DPS.
Yeah.
This is like the way better version of that, right?
It's target dummies that move and fire abilities at you and
Right.
whatnot.
Yep.
Brilliant. So what you did mention is that there is now a new desktop client in order to upload logs to your website, which is obviously in alpha testing. Is the desktop client going to have any more integration with the website in any way, or is it just solely there for the uploading of combat logs?
We haven't really decided yet. Part of it's going to depend on what features we end up building with Warlords
Right.
to see what kind of integration it needs. The one downside is, we can read things that our add-on spits out into a file, but we can't inject anything, into that file into the game.
Right. Okay.
Which makes sense for security purposes, right?
Yeah.
So any integration we do is always going to be limited by that. It's not like we can, look at your optimizations and automatically send it in game, right? Which would have been awesome, but also bad for everybody because you can, screw up somebody's computer in games like that. So it's a to be determined sort of thing.
Okay. So as you know, obviously I've been testing the alpha for you for around a week now. My first impression was I love it. It's simple to use, but it still gives you all the vital information that you need from a raid encounter. When you were designing the logging, was it were you keeping in mind trying to keep its usability simple while displaying as much relevant information as possible, or is that just kind of how it's turned out?
That was actually one of our main goals. And I know we
Okay.
originally wanted the beta to come out in like February. So it was,
Oh, right. Okay.
it was a little delayed, and it was delayed for some of those reasons. Like we
Right.
spent a ton of time trying to figure out the best, navigation and it's little things like, you navigate down to some detailed view, right? Like you're looking at
Yep.
my specific ability done to somebody else, and then you choose like a picker and you're like, I want to look at the boss now. Well, what do, right? Do you go to the boss view of some ability? Do you just go right to the boss and like cut everything else off? So it's like little things like that that start, tripping you up. So we spent actually
Right. Okay.
probably a majority of our time designing the user interface to be as simple as possible while still giving you all of the information you want. Yeah, so I'm really glad that you and a bunch of all the people who've been testing it seem really happy with the navigation. Everyone seems to find exactly what they want, which, was one of the problems we were trying to solve. We use combat log parsers, we use World of Logs all the time, and that was one of our problems. I'm always like wasting, 10 minutes trying to figure out how do I get back to that report view? Like it just wasn't intuitive,
Yeah.
and we really wanted to make sure we addressed that.
Right. Okay. Even though the logging has been in alpha for a week, when are people able to sign up for possibly open beta, or is it just going to stay on an alpha kind of basis?
It's going to stay in the alpha probably only for a couple more weeks.
Okay.
And if people are interested, they can email us their email to feedback@askmrrobot.com.
Okay.
And the real reason for the alpha is just to get major bugs out of the way. For example, one of the things we found is that the client that uploads the logs, while the program is supposed to work on Macs, there was something with, I don't know, some security protocol certificate, who knows? I'm not the developer. That none of them were able to use it, right? So we wouldn't
Right.
have wanted an open beta to, do that to all Mac users. So basically
Okay.
this is just to work out major bugs.
Right. Okay.
And then after that, we want to open it to just an open beta. You want to use it, you go to a special URL, knock yourself out. It's kind of like a volunteer basis. You know what you're getting into.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
When it comes to sharing information from the logs on the website to say, I want to send this log to a guildie or a mate or something to show them how much DPS I've been doing on this fight, is it simple to do? Can you just click and copy the URL and send that to them, or are they going to have to go through the process that everyone else has to go through of searching for that
Nope,
player
you
and
can
then
link.
narrowing down the fight?
You will. Well, right now you can technically link to any view you're looking at. So if you're looking at somebody's specific fight and their ability breakdown or buff breakdown, and you link it, it goes exactly to that view.
Okay.
And then if that person wants to navigate the logs from there, like say they want to compare it to somebody else, it's all right there. Like it's all the navigation, everything you need will be there. Right now
Okay.
with the alpha, if you link it, the only people who can see it are people who are also logged into the alpha. So it just because, that's how the permissions end up working. But once it's open beta, it'll be working as you would expect that. So if you're on your guild website and you want to share something and say, hey, I see this is going on, or maybe we can improve this, and you link right to it, it'll work out perfectly.
Now I want to move on to talk about one of the other tools that you've got on the Ask Mr. Robot website, which I hadn't really heard of before until a few days ago, and this is the Robo Council tool. For those of you that don't know, that's used in order to help you decide how to distribute loot between your raids. So what you do is you import your players into it using the Ask Mr. Robot webpage, and then when I guess an item drops, it shows you who would be most suited to get that item. Are we going to see any more development with this in Warlords of Draenor?
Yeah, actually, we really want to kind of take a good look at what we can do to help guilds now that we've got the combat log parser. We're going to try to come up with a bunch of guild-focused features.
Right, okay.
And RoboConsole will be on that list to kind of redo it. It was one of our first, big features that we had, and, it could use a little bit of love. But yeah, like we still really like that idea that what it does is it shows how big of an upgrade it is for each person, and then you can decide. Like somebody might be like, oh, it's only a 0.01% upgrade for me. Well, I'll pass and I'll give it to the guy where it's a 5% upgrade.
Okay.
And so we just kind of wanted to show those things. And now that we've got the combat log parser and we have all your data, we might be able to do some even cooler things around loot and how big of an upgrade it is, what kind of DPS you might be able to expect from it. So we're going to test some of those things out and see what works and what doesn't.
All right, cool. Now, Robo Council is a quote-unquote premium feature, although, it's $1 a month if you want access to premium, so it's not really that expensive. Are you looking to release any more kind of premium-only features that you've planned, or is that kind of all you're going to stick with for the time being?
Yeah, we're always, kind of working on both free and premium features so that we serve both groups. And the nice thing about our premium, like you said, it's $1 a month. We tried to keep it as affordable as possible so that, everyone can use it. And with that, you get all of the premium features that we build. So if we release a new premium feature, well, that gets thrown in too. You don't have to buy per feature. It's just all one package. Here you go. Here's all your features, $12 a year. So we're working on, well, we're not technically working on anything right now. We have a couple ideas on the back burner, and part of it too is just getting a feel more for what we're going to want in Warlords. Basically with premium, we always try to build things that are cool, and useful, like extra stuff. We don't try to do things like, you get 5 free optimizations, but then after that you have to pay. It's like, well, that doesn't cost us any extra development time or really anything. So we don't want to do that. We try to treat our users like we like to be treated. So you can always expect that our premium stuff is like, cool, extra, here you go.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we started 20 minutes ago, we started in November 2013 with BlizzCon 2013. And in approximately 4 hours' time, tickets for BlizzCon 2014 are going to go on sale. Are you looking forward to it? Are you trying to get the tickets to go?
Yes. I will have my countdown on and my hand on the refresh button, although I have a feeling, I'm worried that some of these young kids can hit refresh faster than me, so.
They beat me to it last year as well. It wasn't fun.
Yeah, we weren't able to go last year anyway, but we went the year before. We went the year right before they had the break, so whatever year that was.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, so we really want to go.
Yeah,
I was so sad that we had to miss last one. We just had conflicts and stuff. Yeah. And there were some really cool events like that. One of the groups put on World of Podcasts with all sorts of different speakers and stuff. That was really cool. So I want to make sure, we can go to things like that this year. So we're crossing our fingers we can get tickets.
Most definitely. So from a more kind of player perspective, I guess, is there anything that yourself or any of the other guys at Ask Mr. Robot are wanting to hear at BlizzCon?
I just don't know because I'm hoping the expansion's out by then, but it might not be. And WoW is the most played game, for me and most everyone at Mr. Robot. Although we do have one of our guys, our designer, the guy who made our super awesome UI, is trying really, really hard to come up with a deck that can make him legendary to get in the Hearthstone.
Oh.
He's like, it's like his mission in life. It's great.
Right.
Still working on that. I'm determined. And then, just kind of see what they do with Heroes of the Storm. We're pretty big League of Legends players, and so we've been playing a lot of Heroes of the Storm alpha. So it'll be interesting to see where they take that. What kind of do they do any balance changes? What goes on with that? So those are kind of the things we're looking for, because I'm assuming by then we're going to know everything we want to know about WoW, or it's already going to be launched.
Yeah. Hopefully,
right. Hopefully,
I'm predicting September time, possibly.
Yeah, I think that could be doable.
Yeah. So as well as WoW, you guys also have optimization tools for Star Wars: The Old Republic, I believe it is. Are you looking to move into any other kind of Blizzard games, possibly Hearthstone, as mentioned? Maybe help your guy get his legendary deck, or
right? We would love to, but we only have 3 people. At Ask Mr. Robot, we have our developer, our designer, and then me. I kind of handle social media and people and stuff like that. So we don't really have the time. Even with Star Wars, actually, we don't play it, and it's really hard to keep up with a game you don't play. And the only reason we keep that site running is that there is no armory for Star Wars. Like there's
Okay.
no official armory. And so, we built the tool so that you can basically build your character. But can you imagine having to like build your character and build all your gear from like Warcraft, including selecting every gem by hand?
I'd rather not
That's what they
think
have.
about that.
Right, that's what they have to do in Star Wars.
Right. Okay.
And so we leave it up because otherwise there's absolutely no way for these players to talk about their character outside the game. But if there was an armory, we would just be like, okay, cool, guys, just go use the armory. We don't have
Yeah.
the time to maintain this. But as gamers, we just can't bring ourselves to hurt the players like that.
Hmm.
So we try to keep it updated.
Would you look into expanding your team at all so that you can possibly develop into these other Blizzard games, or?
We would if we think that it could support somebody, paying somebody.
Right. Okay. Yep.
With Star Wars, the game was never big enough.
Right.
And then, we tried League of Legends because League of Legends is really big.
Hmm.
But they don't want kind of the optimizer tools that Warcraft people want.
Right. Okay.
It's more of like a content game. So we're still trying to see, like, can we expand? It has to be big enough, and it has to be like a market that's like looking for tools, not just content.
Okay.
So we just have to, we kind of keep our eye out, but nothing's really seems to fit quite as well. Warcraft's a special snowflake, and we still play it a lot, so it's easy for us to build features that we want because we play the game.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's all the main questions done. And I think last Thursday I reached out to Twitter and Facebook and Reddit and all these other places to ask for community questions because people want to know what you're doing and they have better questions than me most of the time. So the first two questions that come in are from a guy called Kenny1891. His first question is, now that hit rating, expertise, and reforging will be things of the past, what's your main focus on WoW going to be from this point on?
Mm-hmm. And so we covered that a little bit, but it'll pretty much be, combat logging and then gear upgrades, because gear upgrades will still be a pretty big deal, especially since you can't change your gear.
Okay.
Making sure, because you can't reforge that stat away, so making sure you get
Yeah.
the gear that you want and finding where to get it. So that's those are the two main focuses.
Okay. And his second question is, as a fan of the in-game add-on that transcribes his character to your website for reforging, that'll probably become obsolete now. Which then begs the question, what you're going to be planning on bringing to the table come Warlords of Draenor in order to replace that. Which I guess, like you say, is probably the combat logging as well.
Right.
But...
And the add-on, we actually have a couple of cool ideas for, for example, bonus rolls are a really big deal. And
Okay.
I'm that person in the raid that's like, hold on, I can't click my roll button until I check Mr. Robot, and I'm alt-tabbing to Mr. Robot, and thank God there's this list in front of me, but I'm still alt-tabbing. So one thing we thought might be cool is, and this isn't, guaranteed that we're going to build it, but it's on the drawing board, is, letting people make a wish list. So it's like, hey, here's the 3 different rings I would like, the 4 different chess pieces, and so on. Put it in a wish list and then bring that wish list into the game so that if a boss drops it or a boss bonus roll shows up that could drop it, we pop up like a little message that's like, hey, this is one of your items on your wish list. Make sure you roll, and kind of help you.
Awesome.
Yeah, so kind of help people with gear.
Okay. And it kind of replaces that void of, oh God, reforging's gone. What does this add-on do now?
Right. And it's, it's super useful. Like I said, then you don't have somebody like me alt-tabbing all the time. I make one list, I bring it in game, and then for the entire raid, Mr. Robot will pop something up that says, oh, this is what you want to roll on. Oh, thanks, Mr. Robot.
Okay, the next question comes in from a guy called Lakai, and he would like to know what the current progress is on your combat log analyzer, and are you planning to compete with other websites such as Warcraft Logs and World of Logs?
Sure. So the progress was actually really good. We waited to release the alpha until the base was really, really good. What we wanted the alpha to do was look for really large bugs.
Okay.
And so that's going really well. And we've got all the data infrastructure and logging and everything on the back end that we need to build the cooler features. So it shouldn't be long, just a few weeks, we hope, for the open beta. Cool. And then once it's in open beta, it's basically, like, our open beta is basically going to be, hey, anybody can use it. and it's good. It's really high quality. And then we
Hmm.
just wouldn't release it to the official website until we know we've got everything that we want covered. Because then you get your average user who's like, wait, what? And if anything's confusing,
Okay.
they're going to be confused. As far as competing with the other websites, well, World of Logs isn't maintained. I don't think those people have worked on it for like over a year or two.
Hmm.
And then so Warcraft Logs is, pretty awesome. He picked up the ball on that and kind of
Yeah.
basically, made the new World of Logs.
Hmm.
And then he made a couple of, features like the combat replay and some hardcore query tools. And so we're trying to kind
Hmm.
of separate ourselves so that both can exist, because it's really not hard to
Okay.
upload to both websites, right? So he's got the replay
Yeah.
thing and the query tool. So unless we come up with something incredibly compelling, that we could do that he doesn't, we're going to kind of let those be his playhouse. So it's like, we don't need
Okay.
to, we could reinvent the wheel and make the replay thing. But unless we come up with something really new and cool, we're going to kind of let that sit on his website. And then we're going to kind of focus on more of like the player gear stats and like how all that incorporates, like, like you're in the 80th percentile of your damage and kind of helping people improve. And then his site, from my understanding, can't speak for him. It's more like, like the hardcore, like you're writing your own queries and stuff to get at like something, some little, right. Yeah. So, and the replay. So,
I just want to touch on the going from beta into kind of open on your website, go crazy and use this, combat log analyzer. When it does officially go live from open beta, are you planning on wiping everything that's already been uploaded so people can start afresh, or?
yeah, that's a good question. We haven't really decided. Definitely in the alpha phases, we're wiping
Okay.
stuff. The open beta, it's very likely at some point we'll have to wipe the
Hmm.
logs. But what would be really nice is if we got to a point that was stable enough that we're letting beta people use it and not have to wipe it.
Right. Okay.
So that's one of our goals is to it's like you're using the beta. The idea is it's already pretty bug free, and so if we don't have to wipe the logs, we won't.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
The next question comes in from a guy called, and I apologize if I pronounce this wrong, it's Tariri, possibly? And he'd just like to know what programming language that the bot's written in.
Oh yeah. C sharp. We use a .NET framework and program the website in C sharp.
Cool. And what about the desktop client, if you don't mind me adding that in?
Hey, Yellow desktop client. So, oh yeah, that's right, Silverlight.
Silverlight. Cool.
And we did that because it works on both Macs and PCs, so that's actually pretty nice.
All right.
And then it's hosted on Windows Azure, the cloud, their version of the cloud. We love it.
Cool. Next question's from Dan Demanton, possibly. And he'd like to know if there's any chance on a challenge mode optimizer.
Oh, yes, very good question. So, if you recall, we're talking about the several quintillion combinations of
Yes.
gems and chance reforges, right? So what happens right now with challenge mode is the gear gets scaled down after you get your final stats, and that's to preserve expertise rating, haste, breakpoints, or whatever that they're preserving. So if you change one reforge on your helmet, all of your gear, say you change like a hit to haste reforge or something, all of your other pieces of gear might lose 5
Okay.
haste, right? Or 5 mastery or something. It's like, wait, okay. And then if you change a different reforge, every piece of gear might lose 7 mastery. So it's always constantly changing. It's not like it's, items are not downgraded in a vacuum. So you end
Right.
up getting in these like crazy loops, right? You can see how you would change one reforge and then you're like, oh, well, that's not what I wanted. Okay, undo and redo this. And you get in these like ridiculous loops. Well, with 5, several quintillion combinations, that starts to get crazy. It would crash your servers. And I believe a lot of computers couldn't even handle it, right? Yellow, it could take like a day for somebody's computer to run some of these crazy. You would. Yeah, okay. So the optimization would need a completely different approach to make that work. Now, with Warlords, since the algorithm, is going to be way simpler, there's a good chance we'll be able to do challenge mode optimizations.
All right. Cool. Do you think included with that there might be some kind of gear optimization so players know what would be decent for them within challenge mode?
Yeah, so like right now I know the rule is, well, anything with a gem socket's better because the gems don't get scaled down. So if
Yeah.
there's any rules like that, yeah, we'd be able to factor that in.
Okay. Cool. The next question comes in from Rasmus, and he'd just like to know how accurate would you say that Mr. Robot is when it comes to the gemming and reforging for your character with your primary and secondary stats?
Right. Well, since we redid that algorithm, I can say it's guaranteed optimal.
Guaranteed optimal. Brilliant.
Now that's based on your stat weights.
Hmm.
So whatever stat weights and rules you give Mr. Robot, he has to follow them, and he will give you the
Okay.
absolute best solution from what you tell him to do. So if you tell him to meet a haste breakpoint, he will meet that haste breakpoint. Things
Cool.
like that. So yeah, absolutely guaranteed optimal. There is a very, very tiny number of cases that aren't guaranteed, but you'll see that in the stats section. You see the big green guaranteed optimal symbol. If you don't see that, it means there was something else going on that we probably got you the best solution, but can't technically guarantee it.
So pretty accurate is the answer to that question.
Yes.
Brilliant.
If you see that guaranteed optimal symbol, you know it's perfect.
Yeah. And the final question comes in from Tinsian, and this is a weird one, I guess. Does Mr. Robot prefer evil red eyes, kind blue glowing eyes, or enigmatic neutral yellow eyes?
Definitely the yellow enigmatic neutral eyes,
Okay.
because then you never know what he's thinking.
That's a good... Yeah, that's creepy but brilliant at the same time. Interesting.
Otherwise, kind blue and glow eyes, because he's really a happy robot, and he really made this website so he can make friends.
Okay, so you're trying to say the robot's a Death Knight?
He might be.
That's what it is. He plays a Death Knight. Interesting. Okay. Well, that does bring us to the end of the community questions section and the end of this sit-down chat. So once again, I'd like to thank you very much for taking the past 35 minutes out of your schedule to sit down and have a talk with us. And, good luck on getting your BlizzCon tickets. If you do get them, we'll have to meet up at some point.
Yeah, definitely. And, good luck to everybody out there trying to get them.
Yeah,
That refresh button.
Well, spam the F5 key.
Right.
Well, once again, I'd like to thank you for sitting down and talking with me. And if you would like to interact with the robot himself on social media, you can follow him on Twitter at AskMrRobot, and you can check him out on Facebook at facebook.com/AskMrRobot. There will be links to that in the video description below, as well as a link to a transcript for this interview, which will also have some pretty pictures of the combat logging alpha in it for you to check out and look at. As always, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.